Welcome, story lovers, to a tale that will grip your heart and ignite your spirit. Imagine a single whisper in a high-stakes boardroom, where billions hang in the balance. A whisper from an unlikely heroine that unravels a web of betrayal and sparks a journey of courage, redemption, and love. In Whispers of Truth, a beautiful janitor with a hidden past risks everything to save a billionaire from a devastating trap, only to face humiliation and danger. Will her bravery triumph over deceit? Can trust be rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal? Stay tuned to find out. Before we dive in, drop a comment to share where you're listening from, your city, your vibe. We want to know. And if you love stories that inspire, hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. Get cozy, because this tale of integrity and second chances will keep you hooked until the very end. Let's begin. The air in the boardroom of Carver Innovations crackled with anticipation. A charged silence, broken only by the rustle of papers and the faint hum of the city far below. The sleek, modern tower, its glass walls reflecting the golden hues of a late afternoon sun, housed the nerve center of a tech empire. At the head of a polished mahogany table sat Liam Carver, a billionaire whose jet black hair and piercing blue eyes commanded attention. His tailored suit hugged his broad shoulders, and his fingers, steady as stone, hovered over a contract that promised to redefine his legacy. The merger with Nexus Enterprises wasn't just a deal, it was a coronation, a move to cement Carver Innovations as an untouchable titan in the tech world. Billions hung in the balance, and every eye in the room was fixed on the pen in Liam's hand. Around the table, executives in crisp suits and Nexus representatives in calculated smiles leaned forward, their breaths shallow. Victor Vega, Liam's business partner of a decade, sat to his right, his angular face softened by a practiced grin that didn't quite reach his hazel eyes. Victor's charm had always been his weapon, disarming doubters and sealing deals. But today, his fingers drummed a restless rhythm on the table. Across from him, Elena Voss, Nexus's lead negotiator, exuded icy confidence. Her platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, her voice a velvet blade as she murmured final assurances. The room was a chessboard, and Liam was about to make the winning move. Or so he thought. The heavy oak door creaked open, a jarring intrusion into the room's taut symphony. Heads turned, brows furrowed, as Willow Bennett stepped inside, pushing a cleaning cart that rattled faintly on the polished floor. She was a vision, her golden blonde hair catching the light like a halo, her emerald eyes bright yet guarded. Her janitor's uniform, a faded navy smock, did little to dim her breathtaking beauty, but it marked her as invisible in this world of power and privilege. "Just emptying the trash," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic, threading through the tension like a whisper of wind. No one spared her a second glance. Janitors were shadows, not players. Except Liam, who caught the quiet grace in her movements, the way her slender fingers gripped the cart with purpose. She moved with deliberate care, weaving between chairs, her cart's wheels whispering against the floor. As she reached the trash can beside Liam's chair, her hair brushed her shoulder, a cascade of gold that shimmered under the fluorescent lights. She bent down, her face inches from his, and the world seemed to slow. Her breath was warm against his ear, her voice a barely audible murmur that sent a jolt through his spine. "Don't sign. It's a trap." Liam froze. The pen slipped from his fingers, clattering softly onto the mahogany, a sound that echoed like a gunshot in his ears. His pulse hammered, drowning out the room's hum. "What?" he hissed, his voice low, urgent, his blue eyes locking onto hers. Willow's expression remained serene, a mask of calm that betrayed nothing. She straightened, adjusted the trash bag with practiced ease, and pushed her cart toward the door, her footsteps measured, as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in his carefully ordered world. The room, snapped back into focus. Victor leaned forward, his smile tightening. "Liam, everything okay?" His tone was light, but his eyes narrowed. A predator, sensing a shift in the air. Elena's perfectly arched brow lifted. "Ready to sign, Mr. Carver?" Her words were smooth, but there was an edge, a challenge. The executives shifted, their murmurs a low buzz, like bees sensing a storm. Liam's mind raced, fragments of Willow's whisper colliding with the weight of the moment. A trap? The contract had been vetted by his best lawyers, scrutinized for weeks. Nexus was a titan, their terms generous. Victor had championed the deal, his enthusiasm infectious. Yet the certainty in Willow's voice, the risk she'd taken to speak, gnawed at him. Who was she to know anything of this scale? A janitor, unseen, unheard. Yet her words carried a conviction that shook him. "I need 10 minutes, Liam said abruptly, standing, his chair scraping against the floor. The room stilled, a collective intake of breath. Victor's hand paused mid-drum, his smile faltering. 10 minutes? Liam, we're all here. The terms are set." His voice was coaxing, but there was a strain, a crack in his usual polish. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "Mr. Carver, we've reviewed everything. Delaying now could jeopardize—" 10 minutes, Liam repeated, his tone brooking no argument. He strode toward the door, his polished shoes clicking with purpose, ignoring the protest that erupted behind him. Victor called after him, "Liam, this is now or never." But Liam didn't turn back. His heart pounded, not from the deal, but from the enigma of Willow Bennett. In the hallway, the air was cooler, the city's distant hum a faint pulse through the glass walls. Willow was just turning a corner, her cart's rattle fading. "You," Liam said, his voice sharp, pointing as he closed the distance. She stopped, her posture stiffening, but her eyes met his without fear. "Explain. Now." Willow's gaze held steady, a quiet strength that belied her humble uniform. "I know what I said sounds insane," she began, her voice low but clear. "But I overheard something I wasn't meant to. If you sign that contract, you'll lose everything." Liam's skepticism flared, yet the intensity in her emerald eyes, the way she stood her ground, made him pause. A janitor had no business in his world, yet she'd risked her job, maybe more, to warn him. "Proof," he demanded, crossing his arms, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. "You expect me to believe you without evidence?" Willow nodded, unflinching. "I have it. Photos, recordings. Meet me tonight 8:00 in the break room." She paused, her voice softening. "I know the stakes, Mr. Carver. I wouldn't speak if I weren't certain." Liam studied her, searching for a lie, a motive, but found only resolve. "If you're wasting my time, you're done here," he said, his voice cold. Willow's lips curved faintly, not a smile, but an acknowledgement. "If I'm wrong, I deserve it." She turned, pushing her cart down the hall, her silhouette fading into the sterile light. Liam stood rooted, the weight of her words pressing against the certainty he'd carried into the boardroom. The contract waited, a siren song of power and wealth. But Willow's whisper had cracked his world open, and as he returned to the boardroom, one thought burned bright. He had to know the truth, no matter the cost. The fluorescent lights of Carver Innovations' break room buzzed faintly, casting stark shadows across the linoleum floor. The city's skyline glittered beyond the window, a distant constellation of ambition. But inside, the air was thick with tension. Liam Carver stood by the door, his broad shoulders rigid, his blue eyes scanning the space. The clock on the wall ticked toward 8 p.m., each second a hammer against his resolve. Willow Bennett's whisper from the boardroom, "Don't sign, it's a trap," had lodged in his mind like a splinter, impossible to ignore. He'd agreed to meet her here, but doubt gnawed at him, Was she a savior or a saboteur? The door creaked, and Willow slipped inside, her navy janitor's smock replaced by a simple black sweater that hugged her slender frame. Her golden hair was tied back, but a few strands framed her face, catching the light like spun silk. Her emerald eyes met his, steady and unyielding, though her fingers betrayed a slight tremble as she set a small backpack on the table. "You came," she said, her voice low, a mix of relief and wariness. "I said I would," Liam replied, his tone clipped. He crossed his arms, leaning against the wall, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the room's utilitarian drabness. "Convince me you're not out of your mind for interrupting a billion-dollar deal, and make it quick." His words were sharp, but beneath them lay a flicker of curiosity. Willow had risked everything with that whisper. "Why?" She nodded, unzipping the backpack with deliberate care. "I know how this looks. A janitor sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. But I overheard something I wasn't meant to, and I can't unhear it." Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in it, a conviction that made Liam's skepticism waver. She pulled out a battered phone, its screen cracked but functional. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning Victor's office late. The walls are thin. I heard voices, his and a woman's, planning to use the Nexus merger to ruin you. Liam's jaw tightened. Victor Vega, his friend since college, the man who'd toasted at his wedding and stood by him through the lean years, was the architect of his success. The idea of betrayal was absurd, yet Willow's certainty, the way her eyes held his without flinching, stirred a chill in his gut. "Who was the woman?" he asked, stepping closer. Willow swiped her phone and held up a blurry photo, taken through a crack in a door. Victor's angular face was unmistakable, his hand gesturing animatedly. Beside him stood Sophia Klein, Liam's ex-girlfriend, her dark hair sleek, her smile predatory. Liam's breath caught. Sophia had left him 3 years ago, claiming they'd grown apart. He'd mourned her. But now, seeing her with Victor, a different pain twisted inside him. "Keep going," he said, his voice rough. Willow tapped the screen, and a recording crackled to life. Victor's voice, smooth and calculating, filled the room. "Once Liam signs, we control the assets. He's too trusting to notice." Sophia's laugh followed, sharp as glass. "He never suspected me, and he won't now. By the time he realizes, we'll be untouchable." The audio cut off, leaving a silence that pressed against Liam's chest. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles whitening. "There's more," Willow said, swiping to a photo of a contract page, its text dense with legalese. "This is the real merger document, not the one you saw. It gives you only 10% control, not 70%. The rest goes to a shell company, Nexus Holdings." She showed another image. Bank records detailing $30 million in transfers to Victor's accounts, masked as merger preparations. Each piece of evidence was a dagger, slicing through Liam's trust. He straightened, pacing the small room, his mind a storm. "Why risk this?" he demanded, stopping to face her. "You're a janitor. What's in it for you?" Willow's lips parted, then closed, as if weighing her words. "You treat people like they matter," she said finally, her voice softening. "I've watched you for months, thanking the staff, remembering names. When I heard Victor's plan, I couldn't stay silent. It's not just about you. It's about what's right." Liam studied her, searching for a lie, but her emerald eyes held only truth. Yet the weight of her evidence clashed with his loyalty to Victor. "How do I know this isn't a setup?" he asked, his voice low. Willow didn't flinch. "You don't, but I've got nothing to gain and everything to lose. If I'm wrong, fire me. If I'm right, you'll lose your company unless you act." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Liam ran a hand through his dark hair, the memory of the boardroom flashing. Victor's tight smile, Elena's probing gaze. Had there been signs he'd missed? "I need time," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'll stall the signing tomorrow. Say I'm reviewing clauses. But you stay out of sight. If Victor gets wind of this, you're a target." Willow nodded, zipping her backpack. "I'll keep gathering what I can. But be careful, Mr. Carver. Victor's not just your friend. He's desperate." She slipped out, leaving Liam alone with the hum of the vending machine and the weight of her warning. Back in the boardroom the next morning, Liam faced a sea of impatient faces. Victor's fingers drummed, his smile strained. "Let's wrap this up, Liam," he urged. Elena's eyes gleamed with expectation. "I want to review the clauses again," Liam said, his voice firm. "Reschedule for tomorrow." Victor's hand slammed the table, his composure cracking. "Now or never, Liam. Nexus won't wait." The room tensed, but Liam held his ground, his gaze flicking to the trash can where Willow had stood. "One day won't kill us," he said, walking out, leaving Victor's protests echoing. As he stepped into the elevator, Liam's mind churned. Willow's evidence was a grenade, and he held the pin. Victor's betrayal, if true, would shatter a decade of friendship. But Willow's courage, her willingness to risk everything for a stranger, was a light in the darkness. He had to know more, not just about the plot, but about the woman who dared to whisper the truth. The city's pulse thrummed beyond the glass walls of Carver Innovations, its lights a glittering tapestry of dreams and deceptions. Inside the break room, Liam Carver stood alone, the echo of Willow Bennett's parting words. Victor's desperate, ringing in his ears. Her evidence, a grainy photo and a chilling recording, lay heavy in his mind, like a storm cloud threatening to burst. Victor Vega, his friend of 10 years, plotting with Sophia Klein, the woman who'd once held his heart, to strip him of everything. The idea was a blade, twisting in his gut. Yet Willow's conviction, her emerald eyes burning with truth, had cracked the foundation of his certainty. He'd stalled the Nexus merger signing, buying time. But now the clock was ticking, and answers were his only currency. Liam returned to his office, the sleek space a fortress of glass and steel, yet it felt like a cage. He sank into his leather chair, the weight of the day pressing against his temples. The contract sat on his desk, its pages pristine, promising power. But Willow's warning had tainted it, turning ink into poison. He needed to know more, to see the full scope of the betrayal she'd uncovered. His phone buzzed. Victor, asking about the delay. Liam ignored it, his fingers trembling as he powered on his laptop. If Willow's evidence was real, there had to be more, buried in the digital veins of his company. He accessed the merger files, his CEO credentials, granting him entry to restricted servers. The documents appeared flawless at first, a symphony of legal jargon and financial projections. But Willow had pointed to a shell company, Nexus Holdings, and $30 million in illicit transfers. Liam dug deeper, his eyes scanning spreadsheets and addendums. Hours bled away, the city's glow fading to a midnight haze. Then, in an encrypted folder labeled Nexus Contingency, he found it. A contract amendment that made his blood run cold. It wasn't the version he'd reviewed. This one slashed his control to 10%, funneling 90% of Carver Innovations' assets to Nexus Holdings, a name he didn't recognize. Liam's heart pounded as he traced the company's registration. Nexus Holdings was a ghost, incorporated in an offshore haven, its sole shareholders listed as Victor Vega and Sophia Klein. The betrayal was no longer a whisper. It was a scream. He opened banking records, his fingers flying over the keyboard. There, in stark numbers, were the transfers Willow had flagged. $30 million siphoned from merger accounts to Victor's ones, disguised as consulting fees and preparatory costs. Each transaction was a betrayal, each digit a wound. He leaned back, running a hand through his jet black hair, his blue eyes fixed on the screen. Emails next. He searched Victor's correspondence, filtering for nexus. A chain from 2 weeks ago surfaced, one he'd never been copied on. Victor's words were clinical, ruthless. Liam's blind loyalty makes this easy. He'll sign, and we'll transfer the assets before he blinks. Sophia's reply was colder. He was always too soft. By the time he notices, we'll be untouchable. Liam's stomach churned. Sophia's laugh from Willow's recording echoed in his mind. A sound that once warmed him, now laced with venom. The evidence was undeniable, yet it shattered him. Victor, who'd shared late-night pizzas in their startup days, who'd stood by him through heartbreak, had woven a noose of greed. Sophia, whose departure had left him hollow, hadn't just moved on. She'd orchestrated his ruin. Liam's hands clenched into fists, rage warring with grief. But another emotion surged, sharper, more urgent: guilt. Willow had risked everything to warn him. A janitor with nothing to gain, and he'd dismissed her as a gamble. Her courage was a mirror, reflecting his hesitation. He needed to act, but Victor's desperation worried him. If he suspected Liam was digging, the consequences could be swift. Willow had warned him to be careful, and her safety gnawed at him. She had already put herself in the crosshairs. Liam copied the files to a secure drive, his mind racing for a plan. Confront Victor? Too risky. He needed more leverage. Expose the plot to the board? Not yet. Not without airtight proof. Willow had more evidence, she'd said. He had to trust her. A leap that felt both reckless and right. The office door swung open, startling him. Victor stood there, his hazel eyes glinting in the dim light, his smile a thin veneer. Burning the midnight oil, Liam? His voice was casual, but there was a probing edge, a predator testing the air. Liam's pulse spiked, but he forced a neutral expression, closing his laptop. Just double-checking some figures. Couldn't sleep. Victor stepped closer, his gaze flicking to the desk. You've been off since yesterday. That delay, what's eating you? His tone was light, but his fingers twitched, betraying unease. Liam leaned back, his mind a chessboard. Big deals make me cautious. You know that. Victor's smile tightened. We've vetted this, Liam. Nexus is gold. Don't let nerves tank it. He clapped Liam's shoulder, a gesture that once felt brotherly, now a warning. Appreciate the concern, Liam said, standing, his height matching Victor's. I'll be ready tomorrow. Victor nodded, but his eyes lingered, searching. As he left, Liam exhaled, his heart hammering. Victor was watching, and time was running out. Liam locked his office and headed to the elevator, the secure drive burning a hole in his pocket. Willow's face flashed in his mind, her quiet strength, her willingness to stand against a titan like Victor. She wasn't just a janitor. She was a force, and he'd underestimated her. Tomorrow, he'd stall again, but he needed her help to seal the case. The elevator doors closed, and Liam stared at his reflection, a man caught between loyalty and truth. Willow had lit the fuse. Now, he had to decide how to let it burn. The dawn broke over the city, painting the skyline in hues of amber and steel. But inside Carver Innovations, a storm was brewing. Liam Carver barely slept, the weight of Victor Vega's late-night visit and the damning evidence on his secure drive anchoring him to a restless vigil. Victor's probing eyes, his thinly veiled warning, had set Liam on edge. The $30 million in illicit transfers, the hidden contract slashing his control to 10%, and the emails between Victor and Sophia Klein formed a noose tightening around his trust. Willow Bennett's courage had unveiled the betrayal, but now Liam faced a perilous choice. Confront Victor, or bide his time. As he dressed for the day, his reflection in the mirror showed a man hardened by truth, yet haunted by doubt. Willow was out there, vulnerable, and Victor's desperation was a ticking bomb. The company auditorium buzzed with nervous energy by mid-morning, its vast space packed with employees from every department. The intercom had crackled earlier, summoning all staff for an urgent announcement. Liam, seated in the front row, felt the weight of curious stares. His tailored suit was impeccable, but his jaw was tight, his blue eyes scanning the crowd for Willow. He hadn't seen her since their break room meeting, and her absence gnawed at him. Victor had orchestrated this gathering. Liam sensed it in the air, a predator's trap snapping shut. Victor strode onto the stage, his angular face a mask of solemnity, a manila folder clutched in his hand. The microphone amplified his voice, smooth yet edged with menace. "Thank you for coming on short notice," he began, his hazel eyes sweeping the room. "We face a grave breach of trust, a threat to Carver Innovation's security." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a tide of unease. Liam's pulse quickened. Victor's gaze landed on him briefly, a flicker of triumph before he continued. "Yesterday, we discovered confidential merger documents were photographed and removed from executive offices. This is corporate espionage." The word espionage hung like a guillotine. Victor opened the folder, pulling out printed photos. "After a thorough investigation, we've identified the culprit." Willow Bennett from the cleaning staff stepped forward. The auditorium fell silent, every head turning to the back. Willow emerged from the shadows, her golden hair catching the stage lights, her emerald eyes blazing with defiance. Her navy smock was crisp, but her hands trembled as she walked to the stage. Each step a battle against the weight of accusation. Liam's heart sank. This was Victor's countermove, a public execution to silence her. Willow stood beside Victor, her posture rigid, a lone figure against a sea of judgment. Victor held up a photo, a grainy image of Willow holding documents in an office. "These were found on your phone," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Care to explain, Miss Bennett?" The crowd leaned forward, some whispering, others glaring. Willow's gaze locked onto Liam, a silent plea shimmering in her eyes. "I was protecting Mr. Carver," she said, her voice clear despite a slight quiver. "Those documents prove—" "Enough!" Victor cut her off, slamming the folder onto the podium. "You stole sensitive information, jeopardizing the sale to competitors?" He turned to the crowd, his tone authoritative. "Security footage shows you entering executive offices outside your hours. Theft of intellectual property is a federal crime." He paused for effect, letting the accusation sink in. "But, given your clean record, we'll settle for termination for cause." Liam's hands clenched in his lap, rage and guilt warring within him. The evidence Victor presented was damning. Too perfect, too convenient. Willow's warning, her photos of Victor and Sophia, flashed in his mind. This was a setup, a ruthless play to discredit her. Yet the auditorium's scrutiny, the weight of Victor's lies, held him frozen. He wanted to stand, to shout the truth, but doubt gnawed at him. What if he was wrong? What if exposing Victor now backfired, endangering Willow further? Willow's voice broke through his turmoil. "This isn't fair," she said, turning to Liam, her eyes desperate. "You know I'm telling the truth. You saw the evidence." Her words were a lifeline, pulling him from the fog. But Victor stepped forward, his smile cruel. "Defaming the company won't save you, Miss Bennett. Security, escort her out." Two guards approached, their faces impassive. Liam rose slowly, his heart pounding. The crowd watched, breath held. Willow's gaze held his, a silent cry for him to act. But the photos, the footage, Victor's confidence, they were a wall he couldn't breach, not yet. "The evidence is clear," he said softly, his voice barely audible, his eyes dropping to the floor. The betrayal in Willow's expression cut deeper than any blade. "When you learn the truth," she said, her voice steady despite tears glistening, "remember, you could have stood up for me." The guards flanked her, but Willow pulled away with dignity. "I can walk myself," she said, her head high. As she passed Liam, her whisper was a dagger. "You chose wrong." The auditorium doors closed behind her, the sound a final knell. Employees dispersed, some whispering pity, others relief. Victor clapped Liam's shoulder, his touch a mockery of friendship. "Tough call, but you did the right thing," he said, his smile smug. Liam stood rooted, the room emptying around him. Willow's words echoed, each one a lash against his conscience. She'd risked everything to save him, and he'd let her fall. The secure drive in his pocket burned, a reminder of the truth he'd uncovered. Victor's betrayal, Sophia's greed. But he'd hesitated, and now Willow paid the price. Outside, he imagined her on the sidewalk, clutching her belongings, her courage unbroken despite his failure. Victor's voice broke his reverie. "Ready for the signing tomorrow? No more distractions." Liam forced a nod, his jaw tight. "First thing." But as Victor walked away, Liam's resolve hardened. Willow was gone, but her truth remained. He'd find a way to make this right, not just for his company, but for the woman who dared to whisper against the tide. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The city's heartbeat pulsed through the glass walls of Carver Innovations, its neon veins flickering in the pre-dawn gloom. But for Liam Carver, the world was a void. Willow Bennett's final whisper, "You chose wrong," had seared itself into his soul, a relentless echo as he sat in his darkened office, the secure drive in his pocket a leaden weight. Her public humiliation in the auditorium, orchestrated by Victor Vega's cruel hand, replayed in his mind. Her emerald eyes pleading, his silence a betrayal. The evidence he'd uncovered, $30 million siphoned to Victor's accounts, a contract slashing his control to 10%, emails plotting his ruin with Sophia Klein, confirmed Willow's warning. Yet he'd failed her, and the guilt was a vice around his heart. As the clock ticked past 3 a.m., Liam knew he could no longer wait. The truth was his weapon, and he had to wield it before Victor's next move. His office, a fortress of glass and steel, felt like a tomb. The merger contract lay on his desk, its pages a siren's call he now recognized as poison. Liam powered on his laptop, the screen's glow casting harsh shadows across his face. Victor's late-night visit, his probing questions, had been a warning. His old friend sensed the shift in Liam's resolve. If Victor suspected Liam was digging, he'd strike harder, and Willow, already cast out, was vulnerable. Liam's fingers flew over the keyboard, diving deeper into the company's servers. He needed more than Willow's initial evidence. He needed a case so ironclad it would bury Victor and Sophia. He revisited the encrypted folder from the night before, labeled Nexus Contingency. The hidden amendment was a masterstroke of deceit, funneling 90% of Carver Innovations' assets to Nexus Holdings, a shell company owned by Victor and Sophia. But Liam pushed further, tracing the shell's financial threads. A new file surfaced, a shareholder agreement detailing Nexus Holdings' structure. It was a house of cards, built on forged signatures and dummy accounts, designed to collapse once the merger was signed, leaving Liam with nothing but debt. His blood ran cold as he uncovered a timeline. Victor planned to announce an emergency restructuring post-signing, ousting Liam as CEO and transferring assets to Nexus Holdings within 48 hours. Banking records yielded more venom. Beyond the $30 million in transfers, Liam found a secondary account linked to Sophia, funneled through a Cayman Islands bank. Smaller sums, totaling $5 million, had been siphoned over months, labeled as consulting fees for a non-existent firm. Each transaction was a betrayal, a brick in the wall Victor had built around him. Liam's hands trembled as he opened an email thread buried in a deleted folder. Victor's words to Sophia were clinical. "Liam's trust is our greatest asset. He'll sign, and we'll be gone before the dust settles." Sophia's reply was a knife. "He's always been too soft. I left him for a reason." Liam's jaw clenched, the sting of her betrayal sharpened by the memory of her laughter in Willow's recording. The evidence was a mosaic of greed, but it was Willow's courage that haunted him most. She'd risked everything, a janitor with no stake in his world, while he'd stood silent, paralyzed by doubt. Her words, "You could have stood up for me," were a lash against his conscience. Liam leaned back, running a hand through his dark hair, his blue eyes fixed on the city beyond. He needed to find her, to make amends, but first, he had to protect her. Victor's desperation was palpable, and Willow was a loose end he'd seek to sever. A new file caught his eye, a recorded call on the company's security server, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. Liam hit play, and Victor's voice filled the room, low and conspiratorial. "Sophia, Liam's predictable. He trusts too much. If he hesitates, we'll bury him with the forged documents." Sophia's tone was icy. "He's no match for us. I dated him for 2 years. I know his weaknesses." The call ended with Victor's laugh, a sound that once signaled camaraderie, now a harbinger of ruin. Liam saved the file, his resolve hardening. This was the leverage he needed, but it wasn't enough. Willow had more evidence, and he had to reach her before Victor did. The office door creaked, and Liam's heart lurched. Victor stood in the doorway, his hazel eyes glinting with suspicion, his smile a thin veil over malice. "Still at it, Liam?" he asked, stepping inside, his voice smooth but laced with menace. "You look like you haven't slept." Liam closed the laptop, his expression neutral, despite the adrenaline surging through him. "Big day tomorrow. Just tying up loose ends." Victor's gaze flicked to the desk, then back to Liam. "That business with the janitor shook you up, didn't it? Shame, but she was trouble." His tone was casual, but his fingers twitched, betraying unease. Liam stood, matching Victor's height, his voice steady. "She's gone. Let's focus on the merger." Victor nodded, but his eyes lingered, searching for cracks. "Good. No more delays, right?" He clapped Liam's shoulder, a gesture that felt like a warning, and left. Liam exhaled, his pulse racing. Victor was circling, and time was slipping away. He copied the new files to a secure drive, his mind racing. Willow was out there, likely alone, her courage a beacon he'd failed to honor. He had to act, stall the signing again, find her, and build the case. The elevator ride down was a descent into resolve. As the doors opened, Liam stepped into the pre-dawn city, the secure drive a promise in his pocket. Victor's betrayal was clear, but Willow's truth was clearer. He'd failed her once. He wouldn't again. The city's nocturnal hum seeped through the cracks of Willow Bennett's resolve, its distant lights a faint comfort against the chill of betrayal. She stood on a deserted sidewalk, the box of her meager belongings from Carver Innovations clutched tightly, the sting of Liam Carver's silence in the auditorium a fresh wound. His words, "The evidence is clear," had been a gavel, sentencing her to humiliation before hundreds of judging eyes. Yet beneath the ache, a fire burned. Liam was walking into Victor Vega's trap, and Willow, cast out and disgraced, refused to let him fall. The truth, her only weapon, was still within reach, and she would wield it, no matter the cost. Night cloaked the corporate tower as Willow approached, her breath visible in the crisp air. The memory of her janitor's access codes, rarely changed, was a lifeline. She slipped through a basement service entrance, the keypad's beep a whisper of defiance. The building was a labyrinth she knew by heart, every corridor, every shadow. And tonight, it was her battlefield. Victor's office was her target, the nerve center of his deceit. If he'd orchestrated her downfall, he'd left traces, and Willow intended to find them. The service stairs echoed with her cautious steps, her sneakers silent against the concrete. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of what she carried, the need to protect Liam and her brother Ethan, whose chronic lung condition tethered her to a job she could no longer afford to lose. Victor's public accusations had stripped her of income and Ethan's medical coverage. But Willow's spirit was unbroken. She reached the executive floor, the silence oppressive, broken only by the hum of distant machinery. Victor's office door loomed, a portal to answers, or ruin. Inside, chaos reigned. Papers littered the desk, drawers hung open, a testament to Victor's haste. Willow's emerald eyes scanned the mess, her fingers deft as she sifted through documents. Forged contracts bore Liam's signature, their clauses a death knell for his company. Fake emails painted him as complicit in fraud, a fallback plan to discredit him if he resisted. But it was a photo that stopped her cold. Her and Ethan leaving the hospital, a handwritten note scrawled in the margin. Leverage point. Victor was using Ethan's fragility to blackmail Liam, a realization that turned her blood to ice. She forced herself to focus, her hands trembling as she searched for more. In a penholder, a small digital recorder gleamed, its presence a stroke of fortune. Willow pressed play, and Victor's voice, cold and calculating, filled the room. Sign, or Willow and Ethan suffer. One call and they're finished. The recording, time-stamped that afternoon, was a confession of extortion, a weapon sharper than any she'd hoped for. Other files revealed Victor and Sophia Klein's planning meetings, payoffs, and a timeline to flee once Liam signed. Willow copied everything to her phone, her movements swift, her resolve a steel thread holding her together. She slipped out as silently as she'd entered, the city's darkness swallowing her retreat. Dawn was hours away, but Willow had no time to waste. Liam needed to know, and she needed his trust, fractured though it was. She hailed a cab, her destination Liam's penthouse, a place she'd never imagined entering. The city blurred past, a kaleidoscope of lights and shadows, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. Ethan's face, pale but hopeful, haunted her. She was fighting for him as much as for Liam. At Liam's building, the doorman hesitated but let her up, her urgency disarming his skepticism. She knocked on Liam's door, her pulse racing. He answered, disheveled in a bathrobe, his jet black hair tousled, his blue eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Willow?" he said, shock softening to concern. "What are you doing here?" "I know Victor's blackmailing you," she said, stepping inside, her voice steady despite the storm within. She held up her phone, playing the recording of Victor's threat. Liam's face paled as the words echoed, "Willow and Ethan suffer." When it ended, he sank onto the couch, his hands covering his face. "How did you get this?" he asked, voice rough. "I broke into his office," Willow admitted, standing firm. "I found forged contracts, fake emails, and photos of me and Ethan. He's using us to force you to sign." She showed him the files, each one a nail in Victor's coffin. "I know you didn't stand up for me, Liam, but I can't let him destroy you." "Not like this." Liam looked up, his eyes searching hers. "They threatened you and Ethan. I couldn't risk—" His voice broke, guilt raw in his admission. Willow sat beside him, her hand brushing his. "They can't hurt us if they're behind bars. We have enough to end this, but we have to act now." She outlined her plan. Reschedule the board meeting for 3 p.m., present the evidence together, and call the police to seal Victor's fate. "Trust me," she said, her gaze unwavering. "We do this and they're done." Liam's silence stretched, a battle raging within. Willow's courage, her willingness to risk everything again after his failure, was a mirror to his shame. "I failed you in that auditorium," he said finally, his voice low. "I won't again." He took her hand, his grip firm. Together, Willow nodded, a spark of hope igniting. 3 p.m., we'll be ready. She stood, her silhouette framed by the city's dawn glow. "Get some rest, Liam. You'll need it." As she left, Liam watched her go, her strength a beacon in his darkness. The boardroom awaited, a stage for their reckoning. Victor and Sophia thought they'd won, but Willow's gambit had shifted the game. Liam clutched the secure drive, his resolve steeling. Tomorrow, they'd face the wolves, and this time, they'd fight as one. The Carver Innovations Auditorium pulsed with anticipation, a cauldron of whispered speculations and sidelong glances as board members, executives, and Nexus Enterprises representatives filled the seats. At 3 p.m., the air was electric, charged with the weight of an impending reckoning. Liam Carver stood at the podium, his jet-black hair gleaming under the stage lights, his blue eyes steely with resolve. Willow Bennett's daring gambit, her midnight raid on Victor Vega's office, the damning evidence she'd risked everything to secure, burned in his pocket alongside his findings. Her words from dawn, "We do this, and they're done," fueled his purpose. Today, they would unmask Victor and Sophia Klein, not as partners, but as predators. Liam's voice cut through the hum. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've called this meeting to chart the future of Carver Innovations." His gaze swept the room, lingering on Victor and Sophia in the front row, their confident smiles a facade he was about to shatter. Victor nodded encouragingly, expecting the merger's announcement, but Liam's next words were a thunderclap. "First, I'm proud to introduce our new Vice President of Operations, Willow Bennett." Gasps rippled through the crowd as Willow stepped onto the stage, her golden hair catching the light, her emerald eyes blazing with quiet strength. Gone was the janitor's smock. She wore a tailored blazer, her presence commanding despite the murmurs of recognition. Many remembered her as the disgraced cleaner from Victor's accusations. Victor leapt to his feet, his face twisting. "This is absurd, Liam. You can't—" Liam's hand sliced the air. "Sit down, Victor. Your turn's coming." Willow took the microphone, her voice steady, a beacon in the storm. "Many of you recall my last appearance here, when I was falsely accused of espionage." She turned on a projector, and a forged contract flashed onto the screen. This document promised Mr. Carver 70% control post-merger. The real one, hidden from him, grants him only 10%. The room stirred, whispers rising. She switched to a bank record. $30 million was siphoned to Victor Vega's accounts, mislabeled as merger costs. Victor's composure cracked, his face paling. Sophia stood, her dark eyes flashing. "These are fabrications." Willow's smile was cold. "Are they? Then listen to this." She pressed play, and Victor's voice boomed through the auditorium. "Liam's loyalty makes this easy. He'll sign, and we'll be gone." Sophia followed. "He's too soft for my ambitions." The room fell silent, every eye on the front row. Willow played the final recording, Victor's threat. Sign, or Willow and Ethan suffer. The crowd gasped, outrage simmering. Victor stammered, "This is out of context." But his voice was drowned by the creak of the auditorium doors. Detective Harper strode in, flanked by 2 officers, their badges glinting. "Victor Vega, Sophia Klein, you're under arrest for corporate fraud, document forgery, and extortion." Willow had contacted the police at dawn, her evidence a prosecutor's dream. The officers moved swiftly, handcuffs clicking as Victor's protests turned to panic. "Liam, we've been friends for 10 years. You believe her over me?" Liam stepped forward, his voice ice. "I believe the woman who risked everything to save me." Unlike you, she never lied. Sophia's sneer faltered as she was led away, her elegance crumbling. Victor shouted, "This isn't over!" But Liam's reply was calm, final. "It is for you." The auditorium erupted in applause, a tide of relief and vindication washing over the stage. As the crowd dispersed, Liam and Willow stood alone, the weight of their victory settling. "How was my first day as vice president?" Willow asked, a playful smile breaking her tension. Liam pulled her into his arms, his voice thick. "Unforgettable. You saved me, Willow, in every way." She touched his face, her eyes soft. "We saved each other." 5 months later, the ocean's whisper caressed a sunlit beach, the horizon ablaze with gold. Liam knelt before Willow, the sand warm beneath him, a velvet box in his hand. "Willow, you showed me truth when I was blind, courage when I faltered. You're my partner, my love. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face, her golden hair dancing in the breeze. "Yes," she whispered, and he slipped a diamond ring onto her finger. Their kiss, a vow sealed by the waves. Their wedding was a tapestry of joy, woven in a lush garden with 60 guests. Willow glowed in a flowing gown, her brother Ethan, now healthier, beaming by her side. Liam's vows were heartfelt. "You taught me that strength is integrity, love is trust." Willow echoed. "You showed me promises can be kept." As they kissed, the crowd cheered, petals raining down. Willow, as vice president, transformed Carver Innovations, driving a 40% growth surge. At the reception, she leaned into Liam, her voice a secret shared. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks." His joy was electric, lifting her in a spin as guests clapped. 2 years later, they parked outside a preschool, their daughter Lily racing into their arms, her blonde curls bouncing. "Mommy! Daddy!" she squealed. Willow, a celebrated executive, and Liam, a humbled leader, had rebuilt their empire, but their family was their true masterpiece. As they drove home, the city's lights sparkled, a canvas of their journey. Willow squeezed Liam's hand. "Thank you for trusting my whisper." He kissed her fingers, his eyes warm. It was the truth that saved us. Under the stars, their story of courage, redemption, and love was not an end, but a radiant beginning. Wow, what a journey with Willow and Liam. From a daring whisper to a love that conquered betrayal, their story reminds us that courage and truth can light even the darkest paths. What did you think? Did Willow's bravery inspire you? Or did Liam's redemption steal your heart? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. A huge thank you for joining us on this ride. Your support keeps these stories alive. If you love this tale, share it with a friend and hit subscribe for more heart-stirring adventures. Until next time, keep chasing truth and dreaming big. See you soon.